Hello, hello.
Hello, hello.
Just kind of waiting for people to come in, obviously. Thought I'd do a little, you know, 4th of July thing. Tell you what, there's been exciting things happening. I just found another one right before a new article about Lincolnski. And, okay, hopefully it's fixed now. Well, I did just create a page, Ziggy. I just created a page on Facebook that's an actual page, so you can send me messages there if you like. Um, it's a public page. There's no restrictions, so you can go right on there, and there's a section for to leave me if you want to leave me a question or a comment. That's one way where it's not in you know necessarily in public view, um, or at least if you could message me there and we could discuss exchanging emails or that sort of thing. So Anthony, hello Anthony. You still want that Doors picture, huh? Maybe I'll do a giveaway on it, Anthony. Maybe I'll do a giveaway on that Doors poster, because I'm gonna need room for the symbols of international support that I'm gonna be planning to put on that wall. The more and more international supporters that I talk to on my channel, so I may need room. So maybe there's hope, Anthony. Maybe there's hope for you to get that picture. Uh, a copy of the actual letter that was sent to police in terms of I'm not quite sure what you were referring to there, Ziggy. But you can like I said, you could absolutely message me over there on the Erico's AMAM page. You just type in a search Erico's AMAM, and I'm sure it'll pop right up. Oh yes, I just finished reading that as well. The recent filing by KZ, I find that to be very interesting. Very interesting indeed. What's interesting about it to me is not that the state is denying to give her this information or to give her this discovery. What I find interesting about it is that the investigation was sparked by Kathleen Zellner's original motion, which Judge Sukowitz has essentially been has deemed as useless and pointless. Yet somehow it sparked the DOJ to start reinvestigating the Dassey computer. So I thought that was interesting, but basically I think she's right. I think she has every right to see that. The appeals court remanded this back to the circuit court so that this could be hashed out, and they basically said anything pertaining to it. I would say an investigation, that basically went right back into the same material. I think that deems as linked with it, and I think she should be able to see it and what the heck they were talking about and why when Zellner filed her motion that they suddenly felt so compelled to do that. That's really for me the question I'd like to hear the answer to. Wonder why they don't want to pony up the information. Well, as I said, I'm not really surprised they don't want to pony up the information. That actually is just what I would expect from them. Um, but I don't think they're going to be able to keep it back because clearly the appeals court has shown an interest in this. They've they've clearly remanded it back so that everything could come in through the proper channels, so that nobody could cry foul. And I think it's kind of, to me, I find the way that Fallon is responding to Zellner is, I think, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but it seems like wishful thinking on his part that he thinks that reinvestigation of the computer won't be relevant to what's going on. But we'll see what the courts decide, of course. Hi, JD. Hey, Paul. Where's Captain Crunch? Where is Captain Crunch? I put him here somewhere, dude. I don't remember. I gotta find him. So, yeah, but the Len Kaczynski thing, man, I think that thing there has really got me going, because with the appeals court remanding this thing back to get this CD to come in through the proper channels, seeing that a judge now has suspended Len Kaczynski with this little BS stuff he's got going on, you know, you almost maybe see that there might be a slight change in the wind there in Wisconsin, and they're perhaps getting a little less eager to just automatically back up these people who, you know, have given Wisconsin a pretty serious black eye. I mean, it almost seems like there might be a little bit of a changing in the wind there, and I may be wrong, but I'm hoping that that's what it is. Hello, Peter. Hashtag per Sandy Knits have been watching your posts with great interest. Oh, thank you, Sandy, very much. You know, as you know, with what's going on with Brendan recently, I am going to be moving forward here in the near future. Going to be really focusing in on. Hi, Richard. How you doing, buddy? I'm going to be really focusing in on. You know, wrongful convictions of youth, and particularly those with mental limitations, particularly those that really parallel Brendan Dassey's case, because even though I'm going to be talking about new cases, it's all going to be tying back into the fact that not just Brendan Dassey, he was just the flagship. He should have been the flagship for reintroducing the rights of juveniles, particularly mentally limited ones, in our justice system. So he should have been the flagship. So what I'm going to do is continue to go case to case to case, where we can show more and more and more cases that almost are exactly like Brendan's, so that there becomes an awareness of that if you go looking, you can find more Brendans. Brendan isn't just the only one, and it is a bit of an epidemic in our justice system. And so I'm looking to go into that moving forward. Anthony McGon, the biggest bit of evidence is the RAV key. Why didn't it have Teresa's DNA on it, but Stevens is all over it? And that is an excellent question. I mean, that's one of the things about this case. This is why I say what Wisconsin fails to understand in all of this is that all the evidence is questionable. It all has seriously questionable aspects to it, and that is a problem. And they went ahead with this prosecution yeah, this is full on, you know, a dead to rights, he's hand in the cookie jar kind of thing. And I disagree. I think it's got issues, lots of issues. And but yeah, the key is one of those things. It's like, yeah, why in the heck? I mean, she used this thing every day for how long? How in the heck is Stevens' DNA the only DNA on there? And oh yeah, and they used all these leg irons and everything that were in the room and all this stuff. How come these leg irons only have Stephen and Jody's DNA on them and not Teresa's? Stephen was able to clean up only Teresa's DNA? Right. So, I mean, there's just so many things about this case that just go, yeah, something ain't right. So, what do you think really happened to Teresa? Okay, so JD, I've actually done a video about this before. For me, my gut feeling, according to the reports, my gut feeling is that Teresa was actually burned on November 1st, 4.5 miles north of Avery Salvage on Xander Road. The reason why I say this, and there are some people out there who are not happy with me, but I don't care. Because really, when you burn a human body, it makes a horrible, terrible, terrible odor, terrible stench. It's a fact. And the only report we have of a fire like that is on Xander Road on November 1st. A fire so horrible, so terrible, that it caused the gentleman next door, Paul Metz, it caused his cows to bolt and actually break through some fencing on the like eastern edge of his property. So it was that tells you exactly, it was a very powerful smelling fire, and that it spooked the cows that much. So it is my opinion that this is where it actually happened, and that in there a few officers that came upon it and saw an opportunity to make a huge problem go away for the state and for Manitowoc, start moving some things to Avery Salvage. This is why, to me, we would see just the bones, just the key. The only place where we have any of Teresa's blood or Stephen's blood really that's incriminating is in the RAV4, which is on wheels and can be rolled. It can roll around. So we have no actual trace of Teresa there. So this is why this is my personal logic of why I think whatever happened to Teresa happened up on Xander Road, and that things were moved to Avery Salvage, and that explains the bountiful evidence of bones in his fire pit, key, this and that, all that, RAV4, but yet the severe absence of other evidence that should absolutely be there. Okay, let me see. I think we're gone. I think it's someone Pig hired a hitman. Oh, you think the cops hired a hitman? Well, could be. I usually wait for evidence on things like that. Don't just jump to conclusions like that. What is your opinion about recent information that the case has been reopened? Well, you mean in terms that after Kathleen Zellner's motion, the state got the computer tower back and did more forensic testing on it? Yeah, to me, that's huge. That's huge. Because they're trying to minimize Kathleen Zellner's motion as if there was nothing there, nothing of consequence, and yet they reopen an investigation. I find that fascinating. I find it very telling as well. Are their remains those of Teresa Hallback? Paul Capaldi. My answer to you is I feel fairly certain that they are Teresa's, but there is a small window of doubt where I could, if more evidence emerged, I could possibly go the direction that they aren't hers. But as it is right now, I do believe they are hers. Like I said, a tiny note, there is a small window of doubt where I am willing to consider other sales. I sent my question to the page that I made. Okay, thank you, Ziggy. I'll get to that after the live session. I think here, okay, so Sandy Knits. I think here in the UK, you don't have to explain what actually happened. You just have to prove you are innocent. So many things are questionable in this case. Oh, absolutely, so many things are questionable in this case. This case, I mean, there's nothing in this case that like really solidly, screams out guilt for me. And that's one thing that is the problem is whether or not Stephen Avery did this. I think not, but whether or not, if he did, he certainly wasn't given his due process. He certainly wasn't allowed his assumption of innocence that we're all supposed to get if we find ourselves in a position of being accused by the state of something as serious as murder. So yeah, I truly believe that the way the fishiness of all the evidence and everything, I don't believe the state has proved anything. That I think some of the weird, odd things happening around the jurors, particularly the one juror who was removed, I just think there's a lot of suspect activity around it. It's just very, very. They made the whole thing look dirty, and the more I look at those dirty aspects of it, the more I, find it hard to believe that Stephen Avery was involved. Because, like I said, if it was at another location, it would explain how certain things are there and certain other things aren't. Okay. Um, Anthony, I don't know why your text was retracted. All I see on my end is that it just says it was retracted. So it wasn't something I did, and I don't have anybody else that monitors my page. So it had to be YouTube for some reason. I'm not sure what you said. Maybe if it had some vulgarity in it, possibly they might have removed it. I'm not sure, bud. Okay, Paul Capaldi. If Len is so deranged that they made him a judge, that they made him a judge, how bad do you have to be made a Seventh Circuit Court judge? Yeah, ha ha ha. Funny, Paul. That's funny. Sandy Knits. How could the key suddenly be found in plain sight after so many people were searching for the planted evidence? Oh, I absolutely agree, Sandy. I mean, that's absolutely fishy. That key popping out of the cabinet. I have a whole video about. Yeah, I called it the cabinet, the key, and the secret entrance to Narnia. Or Colburn and the key and the secret entrance to Narnia, because that's what it's like. This key just pops up out of this cabinet like all boom magic. Oh, it's just like ridiculous how ridiculous the key is, and it goes like that for all the evidence in this case. That's why it's a problem. Every single piece of evidence in this case, you ask yourself some questions about it, and you find yourself questioning it. It's like there's almost not a single piece of evidence in this case that you can look at and go, okay, look, you know what, that one looks credible. I can't find any issues with it, but there's really not any evidence in this case like that. Some people are going to say, obviously, like the guilters are going to say, oh, well, Stephen's blood in the RAV4. Well, I'll grant you that Stephen's blood in the RAV4 is a difficult thing to explain, but the fact is that even it looks fishy. Why is there only like 6 drops? A squiggle and like 6 drops. If he was actively bleeding, and if he was actively bleeding, how is he not leaving fingerprints? And I mean, you just go round and round and round with that. It's a tiny amount of his blood, and it's not even mixed in with Teresa. So it's but mainly that is the best piece of evidence that the prosecution has in my mind. Bones a close second, but as I've said, I don't believe the bones started in Avery's burn pit. I did a recent video involving the cadaver dog and some of what happened with the cadaver dog there on the Avery property at the time of this investigation. So there's a lot of reasons why I think these bones moved to the salvage yard, and they didn't start there. So do you have anyone else as a suspect in the case? Do you think of Ed Edwards? I used to look at the Ed Edwards stuff. In my honest opinion, I think he was too old to have been involved. There's a lot of reasons why I kind of think no. I'm not sure. It's more likely somebody close to Teresa, somebody that knew her, that had been watching her and stuff like that. That's my gut feeling on this. So, and somebody was, somebody who knew she was going to Avery Salvage, so that they knew they could exploit the public prejudice of the Averys and that sort of thing. So I just find it hard to believe that Ed Edwards would be that plugged in to what was going on there that he could manipulate that situation that way. Justin Wilson, it makes me sick how the system is doing everything they can to keep him in jail because they know that there will be hell to pay. Yeah, you're right. And along with the money to be paid out. Exactly. That's mainly what it is right now. It's CMA or CYA. Cover your ass. That's what they're definitely trying to do right now. What happened to Brennan? I mean, like I said, I have a meme in the works right now that you guys might like. I'll be showing it to you coming up here pretty soon. But the whole thing with Brennan's case, it's like how many different things have to build up on this before it finally matters? I mean, the effectiveness of Len Kaczynski's counsel, the Wiegert and Fassbender using the full read technique on this mentally limited kid, and I mean just on and on it goes, and yet Brendan's still in jail, and it's proving nice difficult to reverse what is clearly wrong. So I mean, yeah, absolutely. Okay, Paul Capaldi, how bad to be a SCOTUS judge? Yeah, haha. Okay, buddy. Anthony McGon, it was about when Teresa's throat was supposed was supposed to have been cut, and there was no blood trace. Oh, absolutely, Anthony. The whole problem with this case is that they don't find a trace of Teresa anywhere in these two crime scenes where all this is supposed to have happened. Not a trace of her, not a single trace until after they coerced Brendan on March 1st and push him to say things happened in the garage and continually push him and bully him into saying things happened in the garage, and then lo and behold they get the warrant to go back into the garage on May 2nd or 3rd, whichever day it was, and suddenly we find this bullet miraculously hidden under an air compressor on top of the concrete dust, shiny as can be, that has Teresa's DNA on it. So yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Richard Dotson. I see answer lies with TH childhood friend. You say answer lies with TH childhood friend? Quite possibly. Jim Marlowe. Hey, Eric Kose. I live in Nina. Kaczynski is a joke, and I heard people who have to go in front of him ask for a different judge. He was questionable when he was appointed. Yeah, well, he should have been questionable, Jim. I mean, this guy, I don't know how this guy got made a judge in the first place. I mean, his absolute dereliction of duty when it came to Brendan Dassey, overturned Brendan Dassey's conviction. Now we've gone through and shown what a complete S show the confession was, and yet we still can't get it out yet. We still got to go on and point out more of the S show that it was, the prosecution of Brendan Dassey. But so yeah, definitely. Anthony Magan, you can't just throw a body on a fire and burn it. Absolutely, you're absolutely right, Anthony. You cannot burn a body to the temperature of cremation, where the bones are basically turning to splinters and stuff. You can't burn a body like that in an open fire pit. In an open fire pit, it's just not possible. The heat escapes out in so many directions. It's only in like a furnace type thing where it contains all of the heat, and you get up to around 3,500 BTUs, I believe it is. Or is it 2,500? I don't know. More than what's generated by an open bonfire. So that's the whole point of that. That's why it's weird that those bones are in such a decayed state. Armed Al, by any means necessary. Funny. Thanks, Armed Al. Paul Capaldi, as you know, I've been looking into the second part of the confession. Yes, I do. Paul is helping me and Mark Hodnott with an upcoming video about Brendan's confession. That's actually something that I meant to talk about anyway, so I'll go ahead and do so here. We're making a video. It's going to be probably a short series of videos, but the very first video is going to be it's going to be like about a 10 to 12 minute video where it shows really all of the most visually and audibly like disturbing moments in Brendan Dassey's confession over that 3-hour period, and we're going to put those together in one video. The idea of this video will be for everybody. Hopefully you guys, everybody here on my channel, everybody out on Facebook and Twitter will share it with people who are not in the MAM bubble. What we're trying to hopefully do here is with a very quick video that won't put people off because they think it's a really long video that they'll, whatever. No, it'll be a real easy, quick video that will basically just show them a few things that might whet their appetite to look a little deeper. In which case we will have about 2 or 3, maybe even 4 supplemental videos that will be maybe a little more detail oriented and dig in, get a little bit deeper into the weeds. So that they can look further and judge for themselves. And so the whole idea is with these videos that Mr. Capaldi is talking about there is that we want to try to engage people outside of the MAM bubble if possible. So So all of you who can understand what I'm saying there, if you get on board with that when we release these videos, man, share them everywhere. Share them where they aren't normally shared, where people aren't normally talking about MAM. Let's try to break out of the MAM bubble and see if there's some more people who can get interested in what happened to Brendan and Stephen. Okay, let's see here. Tom Fassbender and Mark Wigger tell Mr. Capaldi says, I'm sorry, Peter Kujis, didn't he run unopposed? Len Kaczynski? Oh, that may very well be. He probably did, but I mean, who ever nominated him in the first place? But anyways, Paul Capaldi, Tom Fassbender and Mark Wigger tell him that when he slit Teresa's throat, there would have been a lot of blood. But recently, KK and Tom Fassbender have said that there would be very little blood. Oh, I know. They just shift their story however it wants to suit them. Oh, now we need less blood because, they never did find any trace over there. So, a neck wound would never cause that much blood, right? It's ridiculous. It's part of what makes the state look like such idiots when it comes to these two cases. Julie Johnson, can't believe Stephen Avery would have ever sat down with law enforcement officers without an attorney if he thought he might be in any trouble. Well, you get the feeling if Stephen actually just felt like he wanted to be helpful, like he didn't have anything to worry about, like he didn't know that they were going to be finding these things in his fire pit and suddenly on the 8th search in his cabinet in his room and various things. So it seems like he was just trying to be cooperative, and maybe he shouldn't have. He should have waited for his lawyers. I agree, because they should have been the ones mitigating that whole problem there. But when they eventually arrested Stephen, they eventually kept him away from his lawyers. They wouldn't even tell his lawyers where he was, and he was, I think, for like an entire weekend, his lawyers couldn't even find him, or at least an entire day and a half or something like that. I can't remember exactly what the time was on it, but I mean, they were keeping him away from his lawyers. His lawyers were actively looking for him, calling for him, and they were intentionally obstructing his lawyers. So, J.D. McLaren, has Teresa's family spoken about the case? I honestly can't remember ever hearing from her parents. I have never heard from her parents myself. I can't think of any time that I have, other than Karen's voice in the call to report Teresa missing. That's really, to me, in my mind, that's the extent. Other than that, it's all the stuff we hear from like Mike Halbach in MAM during the court, proceedings in the press and that sort of stuff. But no, I don't believe I've ever heard the Halbachs, the Mr. and Mrs. Halbach, Teresa's parents, ever really speaking out. Anthony McGon, Brendan's confessions were a joke. Yes, they were. How it was allowed to stand, I will never know. It's disgraceful. Absolutely, it is. It's, he should have never been in that position. But the fact of the matter is when you talk about all the fishiness of the evidence in this case, when you talk about the way that the key has Stephen's DNA, but not Teresa's DNA, when you talk about the bones in the burn pit, the way that they were collected, the way that the coroner was turned away because they didn't want, it's just like, why wouldn't you want as many experienced eyes as possible seeing this, so that it could be even more certain, so that it would make things more certain. But they didn't do an excavation like retrieval. They just chose to do the wrong things at almost every turn, and that is really kind of the biggest problem. I think it undermines everything about the case. It makes it look like it's a ridiculous. And leading into Brendan, they knew they had this weakness on this evidence and stuff, and that's why they wanted to target Brendan, get him to coerce him and get him to confess, so that it becomes kind of more of a lead pipe cinch on Stephen Avery. That's truly my opinion of what motivated them to go after Brendan the way they did. I bet he nominated himself, talking about Len Kaczynski nominating himself for the judgeship. Yeah, you may be right. Julie Johnson, to clarify, that is why I believe him to be innocent. Absolutely, Julie, yes. Okay, Gravy Train. Hi, it doesn't seem strange to take the suspect family to motel. Can you elaborate on this event? You're talking about Fox Hills. Yes, absolutely. It's absolutely beyond for me the fact that they took Brendan and the Dassey boys and Barb to the Fox Hills Resort, and after feeding him a few things on Friday in the little interrogation they did with him, or an interview as they say on Friday, they they then take all these boys over to the Fox Hills Resort, and none of it's recorded. Not none of it's, no record of it. And I mean, when you look at what happens on March 1st, well, guess what? I think it's pretty obvious what was happening that entire weekend. They were grooming Brendan. They were mentally conditioning him and grooming him for March 1st because they wanted it all to try it. Even though they were coercing him, they wanted it to have a lot of practice so that it would kind of at least come out of Brendan as smooth as possible, even though it still came out as a train wreck. But that's what I think that whole weekend was for, is that they were trying to prep and groom Brendan. And I think it only marginally worked because I think Brendan has an actual abhorrence for telling lies. And the fact that they were making him tell lies the whole time and were only accepting lies, I think it made him very uncomfortable. And I think that's why everything you see when they're trying to extract from him is just looks painful. It's because I think Brendan has an inborn, hardwired nature that he doesn't like telling lies. He did run unopposed. He was a lawyer. The next day, a judge. Very little noise about him becoming a judge. Just a lot of head shaking and disbelief. Paul Capaldi. Gonna have another beer. Can I get you one, buddy? Yeah, I got my Dr. Pepper, dude. There you go. It's a special can right now that they got. I don't know, you can't really see it, but anyway, they got I think there's a llamas down there or something on it. Anyway. But I am a pepper, so anyway. I know everyone handles things differently. It just seems odd to have so little from her actual family. Well, yeah, but I can imagine that they all find this to be very painful, distasteful. I mean, for them, I can't say I blame them. I imagine they find it all just extremely uncomfortable, painful, and yeah. So I don't hold it against the Hallbox. I have sympathy for them. Let me see here. Then Lynn Kaczynski was just locked up. I saw a picture of him in an orange jumpsuit with the big stupid grin on his face. Yep. And in my video, I made fun of that. He actually, like I said at the beginning of this video, or beginning of this live broadcast, he has now been suspended. The Supreme Court in Wisconsin has suspended him now, pending, the outcome of whether or not this I guess business with this litigation about this court clerk and what they're suggesting that he did. So now not only was his case reheard and a restraining order reissued, now after this arrest he has now been suspended from his judge position. So it's getting deeper and deeper for Lynn Kaczynski. Ziggy, I so agree, JD. Makes me wonder about the brother and ex-boyfriend. Okay, Beck, has anyone in the family ever discussed what happened at Fox Hills? Not with me. I guess is the only thing I can say there. Not with me. They don't really talk about case stuff a whole lot, especially stuff that's sensitive. So, but if it ever comes out in the proper channels, information about that, I will be the first to get it out there, because I desperately want to know what happened at Fox Hills. Jamie Costello, why wasn't Fox Hills brought up at trial? It was not videotaped, etc. I imagine that's probably going to be part of maybe the next step of when they do this, when they try to take Brendan's case to appeal again. But they also, I mean, obviously they need to get new evidence. So maybe, but maybe that's going to be part of where the new evidence will rely on is what happened at Fox Hills. So let's hope. I mean, I really do hope that they get to the bottom of that. Jamie Costello. I'm sorry. JD McLaren. Ziggy M, I wonder if the family has questioned the investigation. You know what, guys? Ziggy and JD, I also wonder that about the hall box. I seriously do. I wonder if they have begun to look at all this stuff and all this everything surrounding the whole thing, and if some little voice in the back of their mind has started to make them question. What is opinion on Casey motion to compel she filed yesterday, like Dedrick coming out of retirement, and also your opinion on Scott Taddock and Bobby BT? I imagine that would be Bobby Dassey, handing over or Bob Taddock, sorry, handing over the computer tower to the cop. When I read that in the motion, I was not really happy about it, but yeah, I don't know what to say about that at this time. All I know is this whole situation has now created this, because it happened. Now we got the state not wanting to hand this over. KZ is asking for it. It's now becoming quite public that the state is wanting to not release it, like they have something to hide. So I'm actually of the opinion of I'm glad that this situation arose. Let's see. LaFontaine. These idiots make Trump look like an angel. Possibly. Don't like to get too political here on my channel, though. So, anyway. Do you know if it's the same PC or a new PC? My mind, it's the same. They referred to it as the same tower. So I'm gonna have to go with it was the same PC, personally. Like I said, the wording I saw in the motion was that it was the very same tower. So I also have something else coming up pretty soon, everybody, that I think it's going to be either tomorrow morning or maybe tomorrow night for us here in the U.S., but I'm going to be doing a discussion with Tracy Keogh. Tracy Keogh is a very, very strong supporter of Brendan. Very smart, very educated, and she educates herself about Brendan, the political machinations there in Wisconsin, the upcoming elections, and she's got a lot of information for everybody that I think you're going to want to tune into. So I'm going to be uploading that either tomorrow or the next day. Just wanted to make everybody aware of that. Jamie Costello, do you know? Let's see. So it probably has new info because they probably were using it after receiving it back in 2006. Potentially, if it was being used in the meantime, they might be collecting. I believe there could be something to that. They could be collecting more recent information on it. I would imagine you might even have. I would imagine a lot of the old stuff might have gotten overwritten if it was still being used. But then again, it's a very old computer, so it may have just been sitting in a back room or in a basement somewhere. Paul Capaldi. I've been told by several people that very little was discussed at Fox Hills, but when they interview him on March 1st, they refer to stuff that they have already discussed. Absolutely. That's another thing about it. It's like, yeah, you already told us this. You already told us that. You already told us that. When did he have the chance to do that exactly, guys? Right? Yeah, you're absolutely right, Paul, about that. So, there has to be a lot of pretext that goes before the March 1st interview of what Mark Wiegert and Tom Fassbender were doing to kind of mentally condition and like prepare Brendan for the March 1st confession. Grabber chain, gravy chain. I've always thought that with such an elaborate setup to frame SA and BD, many dozens of phone and email conversations had to take place. Many dozens? I think there's a small handful of people in this case that are in the know that were part of the actual machinations of it. I think the most everybody else in it was just a cop or a servant of the DOJ or the DCI or whatever, and instead of questioning, it was just all compasses point north. All compasses point north. They may have had questions, but they never voiced them because, like I said, all compasses point north. And that is what allows a small number of people to pull this off. Paul Capaldi, could that have been discussed on the 27th and 28th? Well, that's what I'm getting at. Is that I feel that at Fox Hills were grooming Brendan. I say grooming him. They were preparing him. You know, they're like and mentally conditioning him. I like to use the term mentally conditioning because that is what was happening. It's clear that Brendan felt mentally conditioned, and you can see it in the way that he responds to questions, especially when they question his honesty. Grabber train, gravy train. Sheriff office has many cameras and rig devices. Any chance someone was caught on an open mic? I keep hoping something like that turns up. Um, yeah, that would be nice. I agree. That would be awesome. JD McLaren, have you spoken with Stephen or Brendan? How are they feeling about the recent news? I spoke with both of them, but I spoke with them at the rally, which was on June 8th and 9th. So I will tell you that when I spoke with Brendan, that kid's spirit is indomitable, man. He is so upbeat. He doesn't let it all get him down. You know, I think he I think there's something to be said for knowing you're innocent, because Brendan seriously is just an innocent. He is an innocent in almost any respect of the word, and he was just he was a pleasure to talk to. Stephen also had an upbeat to him. He was actually feeling like he felt. I think the recent decision by the appellate court had him feeling like, you know, that he felt like the judges were beginning to turn a little. They were beginning to actually give him a little bit of consideration. That he felt there was a little bit of a tide turning, and so he was feeling optimistic. But don't know. I do know that other people have talked to Brendan since the decision came through, and that I've heard that he is still very upbeat, has every, you know, confidence in his attorneys, Laura Nyrider, Steve Drizzen, Robert Dvorak, and that he just awaits the next step in the process. Because I mean, hey, look, this mountain of stuff. Like I say, you know, how big does the mountain of straw need to be before the camel's back breaks? How big does that mountain need to get? Because I guarantee you, in the near future, Nyrider and Drizzen are going to be adding to it. Let me see. I recently just read that Bobby Sala's letter to SA. You think there's any weight to that? Any weight to what he was saying? I haven't seen that, so I'm not sure. I'll have to get back on that. Ziggy M. I think our judicial system needs new checks and balances. My son submitted some motions in Missouri. The judge said the paper smelled, so she had it thrown out. There was nothing that it could have smelled of. Wow, that's pretty bad. And like I said, it's going to require the people really getting involved again. It's something that I feel is necessary. I know everybody's busy with their normal lives, and raising kids and making mortgage payments and all that stuff is very, very difficult. But it is important that we do take the time, at least make a little bit of time, to care about our social issues and what's going on in our society, because you don't want to suddenly be caring the day that the injustice is happening to you. That's not really the day you want to start caring. And I don't expect people to break their back, but always remember that it's good to lend your voice to the chorus when you see something that is injustice. And I don't think I need to tell anybody that's here on my channel talking to me right now that. You guys pretty much already know that. But that's what I hope to see from more Americans moving forward. That they'll get involved and speak and keep speaking up for what's right, and definitely what's right is our court system has to change the way it treats mentally limited juveniles and juveniles in general. it has to happen, and hopefully the ball is beginning to roll on that. Peter Kujis, I also agree with you that the timing of everything is very fishy. I mean, Fox Hills happened just after they got denied by Jody, right? Yes, absolutely. Jody files the papers to stop them from coming to harass her, and ask her about. Well, you saw my other video about that. You know, I don't blame her for telling them to go away. They were getting creepy and very, very personal. And so, yeah, absolutely. And so suddenly she blocks them, and it's like, oh, here we go. Let's go after the Dassey boys. Let's go see what we can shake out of this tree here. It's obvious. Julie Ferrader, hi Eric. Hello, hi Julie. Ziggy, my heart breaks for them. I know, it's rough, this situation, Ziggy. Indy Fairmouth, I can't wait for them to get. Oops, can't wait for them to get out. Oh, I hear you, Mindy. I do. Sandy Knits, if Steven was so clever in cleaning every trace of Teresa's DNA from the house and the garage, why did he leave his own DNA so obviously in the car? Makes no sense. Absolutely. I mean, and how's it? Why is there no fingerprints on the steering wheel or anywhere in the car? Oh, he was wearing gloves. Then how was he actively bleeding everywhere? And it's like, so he was able to clean up the fingerprints, but not the blood. It's, the best narrative I heard and that I really liked was KZ's narrative, where she talked about it. Stephen was just going from idiot to savant, idiot to savant, idiot to savant, and that was right on the money, because that's exactly what the narrative of the state expects you to believe. Jamie Costello, there is a letter where he tells SA that 4 witnesses said they would have voted not guilty had they known that the time differences, had they known of the time differences between SA's trial and that's interesting. Let's see, and that he believes it was BD. I think he means BOD though, and his friend, assuming he means Michael Osmondson, who murdered Teresa Hallbach. They were apparently last seen with her. There is some things to that. There's definitely there's some substance there, Jamie. Definitely. Mike Osmondson could have been motivated to want to get Stephen Avery out of the way. There's a lot of things there, but I don't know as far. I just don't know as far as all that. I need to see more evidence, but I know Michael Osmondson there's some aspects about him that bother me. Put it that way. Julie Furator, OMG, you actually pronounced my name right. Oh, thank you. That's happy I could be the one to pronounce it correctly. Hi, Susan. How are you doing? Jamie Costello. It ties in with MA saying that MO dislikes S. Yeah, absolutely. And MA, right. I don't really want to talk about that whole situation with MA and MO and SA, but yeah, there was cause for MO to be mad. Michael Osmondson. He had cause to be angry with Stephen. I'll just leave it at that. So, as I said, moving forward in the future here, I'm going to be trying to do a focus and a spotlight on wrongful convictions of youth, particularly those who are mentally limited. As I said, coming up either tomorrow or the next day, going to be having my discussion with Tracy Keogh. Everybody, you guys should all try to tune in for that one and share that one. We're going to talk about Brendan at first, but then we're going to talk about the Wisconsin governor's race and some other stuff. So hopefully everybody can tune in for those things. I think we're kind of getting, well, let's see here. Mr. Capaldi, have read some comments by JB that some things need to be done to prevent future Steves and Brendans. Jerry Buting, right, sorry. Is there a danger that he's saying that the legal system may start getting things right in the future. Funny, you're a funny guy, Paul. Yeah, well, hopefully, if the people rise up and start taking an interest, because remember, this country is a nation for the people by the people. If we're not taking an interest and we're not using our voice and we're not, you know, voting out the people that aren't doing the right things, then it's our fault. We're not doing our part. We're not, you know, creating the change that needs to happen. So it takes a lot of people to care. And the thing is that in today's world, it's easy to get sucked into binge watching a new show and all this stuff, and you can easily forget about the realities of the world that are all still happening out there. And I mean, trust me, I love getting wrapped up in binge watching a show and just completely immersing myself into things like that for, you know, a long period of time. But I do limit it, and and I think I just, like I said, I understand that whole aspect. I do. It's just that moving forward in the future for me, these things are important. They need to be talked about, and you know, you're all here and eager to listen to me actually talk about it. You know, you want to know about what's coming up with the wrongful convictions. How many other Brendan Dasseys are out there? How many of them? How, you know, what are the facts in their cases? How closely similar are they to Brendan's? And you know, what does need to happen moving forward? So yeah, definitely. Precious, hi Rich, glad you were doing this. Didn't know what time you were doing this. Just happened by. Oh well, hi Precious, how you doing? Julie Furiator, hi Paul. Thumbs up from Sandy Knits. Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Susan, wonder if Zellner has any idea who wrote the Sikaki letter and if she is having that investigated as well. I don't know. But yeah, there is some interesting, I guess, aspects to that Sikaki letter, definitely. Precious, I wish someone would have investigated it more than they did, Susan. Oh, yeah, there was, yeah, that Sikaki letter is interesting, and I wish there was a little more information about it as well. Hi, Shelly, happy 4th. And the Sikaki letter is a mystery that, you know, and we would love to know who wrote it. Absolutely. It is interesting, you know, who would have written that. It's got definitely an interesting mode of speech in the way that the person writes their sentences and writes their words and everything on there. Um, yeah, it would be great to have a lot more information on that. So, so as I was saying, look, coming up in the near future here, I'm going to be, you know, having a talk with Tracy Coe. She's going to be able to give you some of the scoop on the Wisconsin political scene there, who you're looking for, running against Scott Walker, that is pro justice reform and trying to get, you know, the justice right and get things balanced. So we're going to be talking to her, and I hope everybody tunes in for that. Let's see what we got here. Do you know anything more on who the last appointment was with? There is a Redditor that claims using CDA software he knows the Zips were the last appointment. I think the Zippers could have been maybe the last appointment. It's hard to say. Some say that she never even went to the Zippers. That Jolene Zipperer was remembering a different day. So it's hard to say with that. But if they have hard proof, then, you know, I'm sure it'll eventually will come its way to me and I'll see it. Paul, wasn't the Sikaki letter written by Don from Auto Trader? I don't know. What made you say that? Yeah, see, I agree with Susan. Haven't heard that one, Paul. That's an interesting one. Precious, I sure wish the things didn't take so long with correcting the injustice against the guys. Oh, I absolutely agree, Precious. It's especially with Brendan here when the mountain is already so high, the mountain of stuff has already been accumulated, and that we're still having to fight a little bit more for Brendan. So. Okay. Just to let you know, folks, I'll be skipping your political comments. This is not about politics right here. At least it's not about politicians. We can talk about the politics in Wisconsin and what needs to happen there so that we can get proper justice reform there. But I'm not here to talk about popular political problems. This is a crime channel, not a politics channel. So just so you understand, Hans. Let me see here. Talking to Paul. Okay. I find it interesting that the Zips live right down the street from the Mobile 310 BOD said he went to get the tag